Good evening. It's not a movie, so we can start a little late. I want to start by thanking a couple of people. I want to thank, not people really, I want to thank the Concord Monitor for sponsoring this event. I want to thank Red River Theater for this terrific Concord venue for a place to hold this. And I want to thank Michael Herman from Gibson's for turning out. You may have noticed when you walked in, he has books in the lobby, and Joe is going to stick around to sign some afterwards, so I hope you'll take advantage of that. I also want to thank Joe for coming a little bit off the main circuit that book publishers put you on to come to Concord. Of course, she also came to see some old friends, because that's one of the things that happens when you work as a reporter in Concord. You meet a lot of people and they stay friends for a long time. So I want to say, just in an introduction, I think probably you've read a little bit about this in the Monitor. But I want to say, by way of introduction, just talk a little bit about Joe and my experience with her when I was editor of the Monitor. At some point during that time, she decided that she wanted to leave the Monitor. She had a nice offer from the St. Petersburg Times. But I want to tell you, of all the reporters I ever had, I don't think anybody ever struggled as much with that decision as Joe did, because she had such a great loyalty to Concord and the Monitor. She had had such a wonderful time as a reporter here. We were, of course, used to reporters coming here, staying a few years, and moving on to larger papers. But Joe came in and talked to me about this 2 or 3 times before she finally decided to take the offer from the St. Petersburg Times. And then, about 2 or 3 years later, after she'd won all kinds of awards for investigative reporting at the St. Petersburg Times, she called me again and said she had an offer from the Washington Post, and what did I think? Should she take that, or should she stay at the St. Petersburg Times? She felt terribly loyal to the Times. They had treated her right. She had gotten to do many great stories, and should she take this job at the Post? A couple years after that, she got an offer from the New York Times, and she didn't call me. She just took the job. So she's done wonderful work there. Along the way, of course, I think some of you know she won the Pulitzer Prize for a series on Vice President Cheney, investigative reporting, investigative profile of the Vice President of the United States. And maybe later on, we're here to talk about another subject, but maybe later on we can ask her about a little bit about Dick Cheney, since he's back in the news recently for evaluating President Obama's Iraq policy. What we're here to talk about is a book called Forcing the Spring, which is about the incredible movement toward marriage equality in the United States. And I say incredible because, you know, in all the time that I've been in the news, I've never seen a civil rights issue move so fast. Never seen opinion change so quickly. It was just a remarkable thing. And my job tonight is to ask a few questions to get the conversation going, and then we're going to turn the questioning over to you. So why don't I just start by getting Joe to explain why someone with a great job as an investigative reporter at the New York Times takes a whole bunch of time off to write a book.
So I actually was in between 2 big investigations, and I picked up the paper one day, and our San Francisco bureau, and the New York Times San Francisco bureau, had a story about Ted Olson and David Boyce, who, of course, the lawyers that fought each other over the presidency in Bush v. Gore in 2000, and joining together to file this case. It was the first federal constitutional challenge to same-sex marriage bans. Is this better? Okay, sorry about that. It was the first challenge, a federal challenge to same-sex marriage bans, and I thought to myself, however, Ted Olson, this conservative that liberals love to hate, because he of course had won Bush v. Gore, how he came to take this cause, that's got to be a good story. And I went to my editors. I said, look, I know this isn't sort of my normal fare, but I'm really interested. I'd like to do it. I'm in between projects anyway. And besides, I'm the only person that Ted Olson would probably talk to at the New York Times because he hates it. And I had gotten to know him over the years. I covered Bush v. Gore. I did all the backgrounders for the Washington Post on George Bush's Supreme Court nominee, so I got to know him a little bit more. And he also sort of figured in this kind of interesting way in the Cheney series. He was one of the few lawyers that was willing to stand up and tell Cheney and his lawyer Addington that you can't go to the Supreme Court and tell the Supreme Court that they don't have any right to review your detainee policies and that these people can't even have lawyers. And that was really interesting to me because Ted Olson was the only person who lost in a high-level, high-ranking Bush administration official who actually lost someone. His wife was on board one of those flights. And so I called Ted. I said, I want to do this story. I did the story, and I couldn't let it go. It was a really audacious thing that they were doing. It was a controversial thing that they did. I mean, there was a lot of people who believed at that time that the country was not ready, and more importantly, that the Supreme Court wasn't ready. And I describe in the book this lunch scene where they plan this lawsuit in secret, and they finally kind of let in they invited some of the lawyers, movement lawyers who had been working on this issue, for many, many years, and they kind of let them in on the plan. And it was at Rob Reiner's house. Rob Reiner was part of this group that brought this lawsuit. He was really instrumental in getting the funding to bring the lawsuit. And the lawyers were, it was like, you don't know how to count to 5. And at one point, one of the lawyers threw down this dossier on the dining room table and said, if you do this, if you go forward with this, this dossier on Ted Olson and every conservative cause that he'd ever championed is going to be made public. We're going to take it to the media. And the guy who is sort of the architect of all of this, a young political consultant his name is Chad Griffin. He's now the head of the Human Rights Campaign, the largest gay rights group in the world, but at that time was a sort of operative out of Hollywood and who had cut his teeth in the Clinton White House. Chad said, and his business partner Christina, who together they were the ones that came up with this idea, said, do it. That's great, because if someone like this, as conservative as Ted Olson, is willing to take this cause on, that has really the potential to change the conversation. So anyhow, once I started following this, I wanted to know. I mean, I got to know the 4 plaintiffs at the heart of the book and the lawsuit, and I wanted to know how this would all turn out for them.
Mm-hmm. And how in the world did you get? One of the amazing things about the book is how close in you are with all the major characters in the book. How did you get that access?
Yeah, I mean, I went to them after I'd done the story, and I said, it's writing a book it's scary, to be honest. I mean, you're sort of, it's a big endeavor, and so I kind of set the bar really high, thinking that they'd probably say no, and then I'd be kind of off the hook. But are you still having to? Sorry about that. Okay. So anyhow, is this better? Okay. Why don't you trade mics? We could do that. There you go. So that's much better, yes. So I forgot where we were. Oh, how did I get the access? I went to them and I said, look, I would really like to do this book. I'd like to follow it, the case all the